And we are live. My name is JP Berg, and this is another episode of Politics with Peyman and JP, the show where we try to make sense of a mad world. So today we will be discussing AI, unemployment, and UBI. We will be discussing AIPAC and what happened with Thomas Massie. And we will be discussing that the UN had now officially come out and admitted climate change apocalyptica was based upon flawed models. So we got a lot of good topics, and we'll jump right into them with topic one. So how are you doing, Peyman?
I'm doing good, man. You?
Good, man. Very good. Do you want to start us off with this one?
Sure. This one was one that I've been following Simon Dixon a lot. I keep bouncing around from podcaster to podcaster looking for that promised land of the the Jesus version of podcasting that speaks the absolute truth. And his whole thing is America's turning into China, and China's somewhat turning into America. So he's talking about Palantir. He goes, you got all these AI data centers that are being built with taxpayer money, and it's going to be running Palantir. And Palantir is basically social credit on steroids. It's social credit, but then they'll send drones to kill you. Maybe not at first domestically. They're reserving that for foreign countries like Gaza. But that's going to happen. And then he goes, well, when that happens, to whatever extent, when you got social credit and AI is going to destroy jobs, how do you square that circle to prevent unrest? And that the way you do that is through UBI. And then that UBI will be linked to said aforementioned social credit.
Yeah, it's at the risk of being vulgar immediately, it's a clusterfuck of a scenario. So I just right away, because I've been learning about Western social credit and Douglas social credit. So what Peyman is referring to obviously is not that; it's Chinese social credit. And yeah, this is a massive problem. They're literally, not them. We're participating in constructing the control grid. Like it's taxpayer funded. Like we're all participating in this system that is building. It's like, I will use an analogy. It's like the prisoners building their jail. That's what we're doing right now in the West by letting our ruling class, I'll say, build all of these data centers.
That is a problem. It's gotten out of control. It's not like the Patriot Act, which was in its infancy, and half the country in America was warning against it. The other half was saying, we can't have another 9/11, and there was really nothing to show for it. It was very, it was early stage. It was almost academic. Whereas now it's very clear what these are physical items. These are data centers, and there's been a proof of concept of what they will do. Gaza was one example. Maybe the killing of those children in Iran, if it was automated, is another example. And seemingly people, this is peak apathy. Like, yeah, I don't care what's going to happen tomorrow. Maybe I'll be enslaved, but I need my paycheck today.
Yeah, that's exactly where it is, right? And to their defense, and I mean, I hate to defend apathy, but our whole system is predicated on scarcity. I think of myself right now, and like I have a family, I have financial obligations to meet each month, and I'm virtually paycheck to paycheck. So a lot of these people feel like they're between a rock and a hard place. A lot of them truly acknowledge the problems, but they know they have to keep earning to keep the bills paid. It's that simple, right?
Sorry to do this, but you usually have like the world's most divine microphone. Can you double check, make sure you're connected correctly? You sound like I did yesterday.
Try to jack it up a bit. How's that sound?
No change, but maybe whatever. We'll power through it. What I was going to say is I'm going to play fast and loose with my numbers. I think AI constituted 40% of GDP or growth in the US last year, like AI investment, which is just printed money. The government's investing in this stuff. And the other thing is, like, all of the growth in the stock market came from the big 7 AI companies. I don't know, X, OpenAI, Nvidia, Microsoft, Amazon. So everything it's being propped up by this AI beast. And as I mentioned, it's printed money. And when you print money and you dump it in something, they call it a bubble. And China apparently is doing something that's 80% the way there in terms of the intelligence of what the US is doing, but it's like at a quarter or a tenth of the price. So I don't know what's going to happen when this bubble bursts in the US.
Well, it's very similar to like the dot-com bubble back in the day, or the housing bubble. We're going to have economic strife, and considering what happened every other time this happened, the government is going to use tax money or future tax money to bail us out. Because at this point, every nation in the West is tremendously indebted to a private banking oligarchy. And I know that sounds sensational, but like that's the truth, and people don't know that. So it's not just regular apathy. Like they don't know where the problem lies. That's why they kind of get confused fighting over the culture war right now. It's like, man, we've got private bankers financializing our economies and just transitioning our countries into corporations.
You know what this is like? When like the husband gets caught in an act of infidelity, and the first time, he's upset because his wife is freaking out. The second time, he's still upset, but the wife is kind of getting used to it. The third time, the wife just understands that she's got children, he's providing for her, and she's basically she's stuck in this rut. That's what's happening with these boom bust cycles. They've institutionalized the theft. Like the first time it happened, I guess, with the dot-com bubble. The second time with the great financial crash, they were worried. With COVID, they're like, oh man, these guys are idiots. So with the next one, I think they're like, all right, let's double down and let's try to get away with an even bigger stimulus spending package.
These things happened in the past too, right? Like with the Great Depression, like this has been occurring the whole time with our financial system. It's predicated on an influx of credit. And we always have to do this. And this is why the debt continues to grow. It's like, in my estimation, it's a true deficiency in the market. And we require like transformational monetary reform. But the problem is with that is the people that have all the power, like the people that we've granted, the private banking oligarchy that we granted the ring of power, they don't want to take it off. They don't want to cast it into the fires of Mordor. Because it's just like in the story, right? That's everything. They have almost inconceivable levels of power. They influence every institution in the West and many in other countries too. Their tentacles are widespread for sure. So, I mean, this is the problem we're in. And the worst part is, and this is what I'm coming to the stark realization of, is that people really don't know that's where our problem is. They get stuck on the provincial level. And I know everyone says, oh, start locally. And I grasp that. It's good to be active locally. But our real problems are above our nations. We could put any of these people in power at the national level, but we're under an international crime syndicate that we call central banking. And it's normalized to the extent that everyone's just cool with this.
I was watching the Reclaim Britain party leader, and he seems to get what's going on, but he stopped at the government. So he was criticizing the bureaucracy. He didn't go one level up and criticize the banks, the monetary system that funds the government. And I suppose, he understands that the average person doesn't know what the hell's going on. The average person can't tell the forest from the trees. And and that's being optimistic. They're not even concerned about local things like their local municipal government, their local provincial government. They're concerned about like the potholes in the ground on their way to work. The lines dividing the roads on the highway, they're starting to fade. They didn't pick up the garbage on time. So when you and I say local, we mean something completely different. We mean like a credit union or the local supply chain food supply.
It's like they're focused on what's causing them immediate problems. And this is a theme we get to frequently, is like, what would it take to wake them up? Well, something to cause them immediate problems. Like we're all like 9 meals away from being in the streets at any given time. So once the food shortages kick in, that's when it gets extremely real for people. One of the biggest reasons they can't see this, though, is the level of confusion. All of the narratives, all of the division, these algorithms. This is not social media. I say it frequently. It's social conditioning. They're choosing what to show you based on a precision algorithm, which is set to foment division and to keep people confused, afraid, and arguing with one another. That's the biggest hurdle in front of us.
No, I agree. But should we go on to the next topic?
Yeah, we're 10 in, so let's switch it up here. We're going to discuss AIPAC and Thomas Massie. So we're going to look south for this one. Do you want to start, Peyman, or do you want me to start this
I'd
one?
rather you started. I don't know too much about this.
Well, Thomas Massie, I got to give a little history on what happened here. Everyone's watching the split with the pro neocon, pro Israel MAGA, and the pro America populist MAGA. This has been happening now for a couple of years. Thomas Massie went on Tucker Carlson last year, and he said something that you're not supposed to say publicly. And he explained that every single sitting congressperson has an AIPAC handler. And a lot of Americans, a lot of people, they didn't even know really what AIPAC was. AIPAC is the American Israel PAC for influencing politics, but they're not registered as a foreign lobby. That's what differentiates them from other, because a lot of countries will lobby the American government. You can see why. The whole process of lobbying is questionable anyway. But I mean, in this instance, it's explicitly pernicious. And it creates a very blatant conflict of interest. But since then, Thomas Massie made a lot of enemies doing that, and they primaried him. So this was, I think it broke a record. I'm not positive on this, but it was the most money spent on a primary race for a congressional seat. I believe they spent between $16 and $20 million. I'm getting conflicting sources. So I mean, it's pretty wild. Like it's a foreign lobby just basically runs the American Congress. So I hate to reinforce stereotypes, but like it's pretty obvious now. It's not just noticing; it's right in your face. You would have to proactively endeavor to not notice what's going on in America right now, and a lot of young people are not happy with this development.
I was listening to Tom Luongo, so I went back and I was listening to him. He's more pro Team Trump, and he says he's happy Thomas Massie's out, and he goes, Massie fell for this. I think what he's saying, and Promethean Action is saying, is that this is the City of London. This was an operation where they tricked Thomas Massie sort of into believing that Israel is the head of the snake. And then on the other side, you have was it Simon Dixon, who's saying it's not really Israel. He views it as two different factions. He calls it the financial group and the military group. And he goes, Trump is within the pockets of the financial group, whereas the military group is on its way out. That's why they're getting ready to get rid of Israel. So I honestly don't know. I'm not a fly on the wall in these meetings that Massie's in, but maybe Massie sees the writing on the wall. He sees that the military, i.e. Israel component, is subordinate now to the big black rocks and the central banks, and he's positioning himself for a presidential run as an independent, maybe.
He's definitely, there's a lot of people that want Massie to run for president for sure. But when I see the Promethean Action Group, because I really fell for this one, this is a misinformation operation. Like I really believe it is too. Look at how it just came on the scene out of nowhere. And they're like, no matter what happens, things that they didn't see coming, they just work it into their overarching narrative that it's the City of London. So the banking interest, the City of London, do they not think that there's any connection to Israel? Because I see them as two satellites for the same power structure. Like I can't imagine serious people trying to separate the two. And that's why I believe they're being disingenuous. You and I also had Matt Arid on, who called out Promethean Action Group specifically, saying he worked with them before. They're being intentionally disingenuous right after America went to war with Iran. So, I mean, there's an election to win. Maybe they have some reasoning for doing this, but everyone's falling for these two old ladies, and it blows my mind. As for Mr. Luongo, he is very, very confident in his perceptions. And right now, I have to acknowledge there's never been a more convoluted era to ascertain reliable information. So considering, I think, someone being a little more humble and not so so like have so much confidence in their perspective would be the wise route. But I mean, again, just like Promethean Action Group, he's never seen any of these moves coming. But when they happen, he then works it into his framing. And I mean, and then the confidence doubles down. I just have a hard time believing these people. I really do. And one quick thing about Massie, Massie's the only congressperson that endeavors to represent his constituency. He's like, if you know anything about him, like he's very hard line about that. Like he's principled and he's going to do what's right. Where Trump has kind of, ran as a repudiation of neoconservatism and now is the embodiment of it. And we're all to just go along with the plan. It's phenomenal to me, that narrative. It really is. Sorry, I went a little long there.
Alex Craner also, he echoed the same sentiment that I have right now. Like if this 180 that Trump pulled, it was so quick. He almost, went a couple of more degrees and did a full 360. If you remember, he went to the World Economic Forum and he just blasted globalism. He blasted climate change, which, thank God, we'll get to that. That's one benefit of having Trump around. But now it seems like he's falling back in line, and maybe he had to throw a bone to these military guys that they want to go regime change around the world. Maybe they're getting frustrated. They're like, hey, how come you're paying so much attention to globalism and climate change? We matter too. And now they're putting pressure on him. They want him to get back in Iran as well.
And I will qualify, because I didn't there. Like I will qualify my speculation as speculation. This is entirely conjecture on my behalf. I don't know how anyone can be as responsible as I just was. Because you don't know. Like no one knows what's going on. All of these bigger podcasters that we watch and reference, they're trying to take all the information they have, a lot which they definitely don't have, and then they're coming on here and saying this is the gospel truth. I think that's very irresponsible. Alex Craner, for instance, his position has been evolving. He's one of the more honest ones. Matt Ehret, he always says, like, this is what I think. Like, just make that qualification. Where Tom Luongo and Promethean Action specifically, they do not do that. They do the opposite. They bolster their positions, and the certitude that they have is just indicative of ignorance presently, in my estimation.
Well, it's wild. If you look at Tom Luongo and Robert Barnes, they're both screaming really loud. They both believe what they believe, but what they believe, it's completely at odds with one another. And it makes me feel, honestly, it makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm like, are either one of these guys are right and the other one's wrong, or there is no truth?
Well, the truth is what the elite class want the truth to be, and they reinforce
HBO the fan. I see.
They reinforce the truth with their immense influence. Right? It used to be, even just a couple of years ago, it was a stretch. It was in the realm of what people will call conspiracy theory to propose that there's a supranational structure above our nations that has more power than our political class does. But now, if you don't see that presently, if you're not willing to go there, then you're ignorant beyond belief, in my estimation. That's how obvious this is presently.
Yeah, you and I often talk about how the mask is slipping off. People are awake. And I always say the last 6 years has been like an educational process, and we're getting to the end where whereas 2 years ago, if you asked me, what do you mean there's people running the world? How could they run the world? Explain me, walk me through the mechanics. I just couldn't. But now it's kind of, it's coming into focus. So you have all of this money that's going into BlackRock, and BlackRock has board seats on all the big companies in the country. And those companies take a percent. They decide what to lobby for in Congress. And when they lobby, what they lobby for eventually becomes law. So that's how the hijacking has been happening, and which brings us to where we are today, because we're trying to bring that truth to the people.
And another way that they enforce their will is if you deviate from their plans, they do some gangster shit. Like a lot of people say, like, oh yeah, it's the government are like gangsters. They always say that line. Yeah, the government are gangsters. No, the gangsters copied their model from the government. This is what they do. It's a monopoly on force. It's a monopoly on law, and they're able to implement their agenda that way. I don't think for a minute that these people, if they can't blackmail you, they will threaten to ruin you. And if none of these steps work, they will kill you. Look at every assassination we've seen. Every American president, though there were a lot of other contributing factors that we could potentially bring to the forefront of the conversation, but it's funny that they were all going against the banking interests. Every single one of them. So that's like, I mean, and Kennedy specifically relative to this topic, Mr. Kennedy wanted to force AIPAC to register as a foreign lobby. And he was really hard pressed on that core issue. And he wanted to get rid of the intelligence agencies. The intelligence agencies don't work for the nations. They, like, Mossad doesn't work directly for Israeli people. The CIA doesn't work for American people. They work for the ruling class. They work for this banking oligarchy. And I firmly believe that.
No, I agree as well. But we should get on to the third topic.
Next topic. This is a good one. So the UN admits climate change apocalyptica was based on a flawed model. So you could start us off on this one, Peyman.
Right. This is a continuation of the previous embarrassment for the UN, which was the Climate Gate, where a bunch of their emails got hacked and released to the public. And in there, I mean, there were some smoking guns, but it was mostly the fact that scientists were saying, okay, this data, it doesn't go along with our intended outcome, which is to show that the world is getting warmer. How can we massage the data? It was basically the modeling data that we saw during COVID, which it destroyed our lives. But we weren't the fly on the wall. We weren't privy to the internal discussions. These internal discussions were released, and it was shown to the public that everything about climate change was just a joke. Unfortunately, they managed to bury it. Now, I think with Donald Trump coming out and swinging and saying climate change is a hoax, they finally had to go back and concede, although begrudgingly and, tangentially. They basically said, yeah, it was all bunk.
And we have to mention now, too, that they do have to rationalize or justify to the populace why they're going to pour this immense amount of energy into constructing these data centers. So that's the big thing. It's like, it's not congruous with their plan. So now they have to do some backtracking here. It was fine when they wanted the peasantry to acclimate to a lesser quality of life under this pretense. But now that the oligarchy wants to build these data centers to tighten their grip on humanity, now they have to backtrack. And now they're going to admit this. There's been a plethora of well-credentialed academics and scientists that have been writing books furiously regarding this, saying that anthropogenic climate change is a rationalization for the deindustrialization and the degrowth of Western economies. And it's also a good reason to implement this technocracy that they're desperate to implement, seemingly. So, I mean, I think a lot of it definitely has to do with that aspect.
Yeah, Patrick Moore is one. He was part of Greenpeace, co-founder of Greenpeace, and then he split off with them when he saw the climate change thing was a hoax, joined the People's Party of Canada. But, it was very easy, and to a certain extent it still is, for the media to discredit these people as quacks. So now I'm calling upon everyone in the audience, next time you go to a dinner party and you see one of these green fanatics there that destroyed your life, get in their face and just mock them. Be like, oh, really? What happened? I want my climate tax dollars back. Your price of gas is up. It was all based on a lie. They need to be held accountable for the damage that they've done to society.
They should be mocked and ridiculed. Mocking and ridiculing people publicly serves a very important function. And when people do shameful things, we should shame them. And nothing works better than mockery for that process. So just I have a list of the various, again, well-credentialed, some of these people, scientists, some of them academics in their field, all well-credentialed.
But does that include, is Al Gore on that list?
Al Gore is certainly not on this list. Ian Plimer, Judith Curry, William Happer, Richard Lindzen, Patrick Moore, Bjorn Longberg, Stephen Koonin, Willie Soon, Gregory Wrightstone, Greg Braden, Alex Epstein. I mean, this is just to name some. Like, there's been so many whistleblowers on this from academia, but it just goes to show, like, they can purchase a scientific consensus. This is how they operate. They have immense power. They purchase a scientific consensus, and then that backs up everything they want to do. The only reason they're backtracking on this, in my estimation, is relative to them now having to turn around on a dime and say, yeah, well, we're going to build these massive, data centers that suck up the equivalent of what Manhattan is using for power consumption. I mean, you can't do that in this green apocalyptic framing. So that has to go now, because this takes precedence over that. Both of these things, the green agenda and the data centers, are going to be used to control humanity.
The next few years in Canada, it's going to be glorious, because all of these green activists, zealot, climate terrorists, they're going to start losing the support of the government, which they need. These people, they don't make their own money. They suckle at the teat of government. So Carney is now in a difficult position, because he's sort of aligned himself with the green movement. Trump has kicked his knees out from under him, and now the United Nations has come out and made this admission. So he's got to start walking away from this. And I want to see what happens to these green guys, because you're mentioning that you got these two conflicting views that you can't hold both of them. You sure as shit can believe these green nuts are going to hold both of them. They're going to hold on to them for dear life, and it's going to be hilarious watching them squirm.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be interesting for sure. I will take a moment now, as I neglected my hosting duties, to appeal to the audience. If you guys can please share this, it's very advantageous. So Carney wasn't just on board with the green agenda. I believe he was one of the major orchestrators of it. Like, if you read his book Values, his whole system is based upon this, like carbon consumption as being tied to the new financial system after the Great Reset. Like, it's all predicated on it's continuing the scarcity model, because again, scarcity is necessary to impose scarcity on the people, so we continue to get up and keep the farm running. If people live in abundance, they can't force us to work on what they want us to work on. But yeah, Carney's going to have to do a total 180 on this one, because he's written a book about this. This is his major thing. This is why he was this is what he was attempting to do as head of the central bank in Canada and in England when he was there. And he destroyed the economies, implementing all these carbon capture policies and these carbon taxation, and putting a lot of money into building these green projects. And now they got to turn around and, like, it was all for nothing. It was based on a poor modeling system. It's wild. That's next level incompetence, if that was true, which we know it's not.
Carney is the one person I can't seem to figure out. I mean, sure, they sent him in from Europe to do what, though? Because Trump is already doing what the globalists want, which is centralizing money in BlackRock, wiping out the poor, bringing on data centers, Palantir. Like, did the Europeans really think that Brookfield would replace BlackRock? Are they coming up with their own version of Palantir? Or was it just the most short-sighted plan ever? Like, the only thing we have to focus on is Russia, Ukraine, and we'll send this loser central banker right on the front lines to take on the president of the most powerful country on the planet.
It could be desperation, definitely, on their behalf, but I believe that they're all working together. I don't think for a moment that Trump is not being influenced by this banking oligarchy. I used to believe that was the Promethean action thing. Trump, every headline, it's Trump decimates the city of London. Trump gets the bankers. It's like, Trump works for the bankers, man, clearly. And when you look at our last election, how Trump gave the win to Carney, he didn't want Polyev, who would have done whatever Carney's doing. He would have had Carney in his ear telling him what to do, but they wanted to do it together. These gentlemen run in the same circles. The division between America and Europe, I think, is a show. And they're using this within their modeling to bring about the changes they want. It's like I said the whole time, what Keir Starmer was doing was using the threat of the far right to enact all of these crazy censorship laws and all of these different impositions on liberty. And Trump is doing it with the far left. It's just the antithesis of it. It's the same thing. But I don't. Once I started to accept that Trump is part of this, and we're watching a show, a literal scripted movie, things started to make sense. Now, China is not necessarily part of this. Russia is definitely not part of this. Iran is definitely not part of this. But the Western nations will fall in line because the superstructure above them that wields the most control and influence is the same for all of them. So I mean, it's and again, conjecture. I'm speculating, but we're in the realm of speculation. If you want to have an opinion on any of this stuff, you have to be bold enough to speculate.
We don't really have any questions, so let's. I want to go back to something you said earlier. Right now, you mentioned the conservatives. So Trump didn't want Pierre Poilievre. And earlier on, you said that the government is gangsters. If you look at the Conservative Party, the way that they operate is very much the way that a gangster would operate. So they're not focused on making their business model better and making their messaging better. They're focused on going out and intimidating people out of their vote. This whole don't split the vote narrative, you don't really see it on the liberal left side. You don't see it on the NDP side, the Greens. You see it exclusively in the Conservative Party. And the reason, and I want to mention this right now, and I'm speaking to anybody out there that vilified the People's Party. The People's Party of Canada, under the leadership of Maxime Bernier, is the only one that called out this climate scam, this climate grift. And they did it continuously, even though they were attacked viciously. They were vindicated now. And now to everybody that ran this gangster, intimidation operation on the Conservative Party, shame on you. Shame on you for harming this country. You're the reason that you lost the last federal election.
I agree, man. The don't split the vote stuff has been, I've never seen it so bad. There was a bit of it when the NDP, like years ago with the NDP, but post Yag Meet NDP are just, they are an extension of the liberal power structure, as are the Conservatives. I firmly believe it's a uniparty in Canada, and I believe that the PPC. Well, I know personally and very well many people that were running for the PPC, and these were well-intentioned people of integrity. Peyman, you being one. You know what I mean? So I know it's not like it's something that's clear in my mind. And I said right away, like, that's why I believe Pierre Poilievre was put in for the leadership. He was going to play the role of a populist. A career bureaucrat was going to be a populist and start to try to appeal to the common people with a populist messaging. Why? Because everyone lost faith in the establishment at this time. This is peak COVID. This is right after the trucker convoy, during the trucker convoy. I mean, they knew that they had to do something different if they weren't going to lose it. And in Canada, the Conservative Party and the Liberal Party are so close that they had to differentiate themselves more. And that's when you're seeing Axe the Tax and feckless slogan hearing Poilievre doing cross-country tours. And then they support, I believe that the ecosystem of alternative media is entirely captured too. I really believe this. You can call me paranoid, that's fine. But I don't see how anyone couldn't see this. And that's what supported that. The campaign against the PPC was next level coordinated. And we all watched it happen. Like, you couldn't, like, the minute you mentioned them, you were just, oh yeah, it's a liberal, all the narratives. Maxine owns a home in Florida. So do many Canadians. You know what I mean? Mark Carney has all of his assets in America. It was just such a non-issue, but they just threw the kitchen sink at them because that represented something from the outside.
Canada has a lot of growing up to do. We saw the 2025 election. Before that, in BC, was the 2024 election. It was a precursor to the don't split the vote we saw federally. And I was saying to my friends, like, hey guys, this Rustad guy, like, he's shady. He's not a conservative. He's not a populist. He's a liberal. He took this conservative-ish party and he's turned it into the old BC United Party, which was our liberal party. And they just shouted me down, like, Peyman, now is not the time. And they said the one thing they always say: we have to get the NDP out. This could be the last chance we have. It's the last election. And this happens every cycle. And they're so blinded by their arrogance, they don't realize that when they do this and when they shout down people like me, I'm not going to fall in line. I'm going to drop down into the non-voter category. The attrition on the conservative side of people going into the non-voter category far outpaces that on the liberal side going into the non-voter category.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to imagine. I've mentioned this before. It's like Canadians are so tribalistic when it comes to their teams that they think it's a hockey game. And anytime someone has a criticism of their leader, they're just playing offense right away. They don't, have a substantive refutation of this criticism. They don't offer that to people, which would potentially win people over if you could do it. But they just attack your guy. And the tribalism is so big on that they've lost all of their rational faculties. They don't apply any critical thought to this process. So now we have this scenario. The only people who can effectively criticize their political leadership are party members. So we have this scenario and this pressure. You can't point out, the policy flaws of our guy. We got to win. We got to win. And it's like, dude, they're public servants. We have a duty as responsible citizens to scrutinize public servants. We have to do this. And like previous generations knew this. This was like, again, it was known inherently or intuitively by people that we have to scrutinize these people. We're granting them power over us. But now that doesn't happen. And this party system is what facilitates that.
I can almost understand during an election period that, yes, an election is called and you have to rally behind your team. But then after the election period, that's when you have to course correct. Or why do we lose the Peyman Ascaris and the JP Bergs? Well, it's because of these policies, Bill C4. Okay, how do we remedy that? We don't want to make that same mistake. Should we walk away from it? Should we get a leadership review? But that never happens because the only time people come out to participate in politics is when an election gets called. So the cycle just keeps repeating.
Yeah, it's I honestly, and I grasp your perspective, but like I think we have to focus on personal integrity, and we can't just toe the line. If something doesn't make sense and your heart is telling you this doesn't make sense, speak your mind. Speak your mind boldly. Have resolve. Challenge your leadership. Scrutinize party members that are trying to whip you in line. Like, don't allow it. And if we could normalize that, things would start to change. But that, again, that tribalism, man, we're so quick to jump in our tribes and we forego our individual rationality and we start thinking as the tribe. And that's the biggest problem with Western politics. This party system is there for a reason. And they want them pretty similar because when the people get mad, we can just kick those guys out and get the new guys. It's just such a joke now. The synthetic nature of it all is becoming very clear to people.
Yeah, I mean, look at Carney. That party destroyed this country for 10 years, and then they changed the leadership and everybody went back to vote for him. A comedian compared it to, shitting your pants and changing your shirt. You still haven't addressed the main problem, which is the party. We got some comments from the audience.
Yeah, let's hit some up. We're abnormally low today. I'll ask everyone again, if you guys could please repost the stream. It's very helpful for us.
So Clown World, first of all, thanks for joining in today, and happy Tuesday to you as well. Thanks for the restream, repost. She says, I have zero interest left in voting. Yeah. How do you feel about that?
I used to think I would give Clown World a lecture 2 years ago, but now I totally get it. I mean, if we could vote for the bankers, let's say we should all be able to vote for this banking oligarchy. That would be a democratic process. What we have is a show. It's a performative charade to provide us with the illusion of participatory governance. So I get those people. I think a lot of the non-voters are like that too. They just get it. Maybe you could have said a few years ago they were cynical, but they were right. And now I could see it. I don't think change comes at the national level, at the provincial level. I think change comes from us somehow disempowering or supplanting this banking oligarchy that makes all their decision and causes all of the wars.
JP's right. Let me explain it in a less intelligent way. No, like, I don't get the impression that our legislators, our MPs, give a damn about us. You talk to them, they talk in talking points. You send them an email. If you're lucky, you get like a generic boilerplate email back. Nothing we've done in the last 6 years has made any difference. The only difference that has been made is changes we've made to ourselves, as we've been alluding to throughout this episode, we have a better understanding of what we're up against. So we're better, better equipped now to dismantle this system. But this government, it doesn't represent us. You don't have to understand it. You can just feel it in the way that they treat us like lesser beings.
Yeah, 100%, man. And it kind of goes back to the Massie issue a little bit, because I think this really showed the influence in our political structures. And Massie's been blowing the whistle on this. This is one of the reasons they targeted him. But I think what happened with that, a lot of people view this as a loss. I view this as an inevitable realization that people are going to have. And America is the epicenter for this. They're the most powerful and populous nation underneath this banking oligarchy. And I think the awakening has to occur there. And I believe we're in the process of it. Like, I saw so many independent podcasters get on the Massie train, travel to Kentucky, and actually participate in this door knocking, doing everything to get the vote out. Like, he's our last representative that's trying to represent us, the people's voice in the Congress. And they couldn't do it in the end. They just outspent them. Like I said, $16 to $20 million. That's a phenomenal figure for a primary race.
Where are you getting that? Did you bring it up?
I was researching it on. That's why I'm giving such a big window, $16 to $20 million.
Tom Luongo said that Massie raised 12 million and the other guys raised 17 million. So it'll be closer to 30 million.
Yeah, Thomas, it's how they raised it, right? Thomas Massie received no money from AIPAC. He's the only congressperson that doesn't. He's the only congressperson that doesn't have a direct handler of AIPAC. They got foreign lobby money. Well, it's a domestic PAC, but it's clearly foreign lobby money to primary the only congressperson that's trying to represent Americans. And I mean, it's not super controversial. I mean, a lot of people like Luongo have different perspectives, but I mean, the people are waking up. So I don't care what certain podcasters say, because it's painfully obvious now what's happening.
This whole foreign lobby thing. So JFK wants to label them as a foreign lobby. He gets taken out. Uranium is disappeared and shows up in Israel, and Israel gets a nuke. Israel is a creation of England, but let's just say the elites. It's almost like the elites. I was referring to this yesterday. They wanted their own nuke in a jurisdiction that they had, pretty much control over. They have far greater control of the nuclear arsenal in Israel than the president has in the U.S. Like, in the U.S., those nukes belong to the people, sort of. The military represents people. In Israel, it's their own personal private nuke collection.
Yeah, and I think it's similar for America. Maybe at one time, like I said, the 20th century was a story of the banking oligarchy consolidating their power and influence. It has nothing to do with money. It has to do with the levers of power, the levers of control. I think they accomplished this through seminal moments, like the end of World War II. Right before it ended, we had the Bretton Woods Agreement. Prior to that, 1913, you had the Federal Reserve Act. Then in 1963, after Kennedy was gone, it was wide open. Then you started to see the social engineering. You started to see the immensity of the propaganda against their own people to subvert them. In my estimation, again, conjecture, in my estimation, they were subverting them away from God, to desanctify people, because their plan is so anti-human that you must desanctify humanity and lead them away from God before any of this stuff seems acceptable.
Yes, you're talking about desanctification and God. I always, always the secular person, I always refer to land. I say this is about our connection to the land. So you push people off the land, and it's, as you say, it's like plucking a flower from its stem. People start to die slowly. They're being packed into these mega cities, and they don't have a purpose anymore. And when you remove them from the land, people don't understand that they can live on their own. You don't have to be, you don't have to have the support of government to get food, to get water, to deal with your sanitation, your shelter, your heating. People are capable of doing this on their own.
And the belief in God is what would prevent people from going along with the agenda. There's something bigger than this. There's morals. Like, I'm not leaving my land. And how can I be so bold? Well, I am of God. You know what I mean? Like that makes you impervious to societal manipulation because you have something bigger than that. And you also have a faith in this. So, I mean, a true Christian people, I mean, the Christian faith is built on martyrdom. Like literally, that's how it spread, was people witnessing these acts of martyrdom for this religion, for this God. And it spread more successfully than any other religion. But that resolve, that Christian resolve, is why they had to subvert us from religion. I believe the 1960s was the best case of that. A good book is Chaos too. I can't think of the author because I'm terrible with the names, but it's a popular book, Chaos, the 1960s. It covers Charles Manson, a lot of the intelligence operations that were running. Yeah, I mean, that was, in my estimation, that was when they kicked the social engineering into overdrive, and everything since then has just been part of their scripts.
You mentioned the God. People moving, when they reject God, they can accept moving off their land. What's the opposite of God? What's the Antichrist? This goddamn green movement.
AI said that AI is a representation of true atheism. It's atheism incarnate. It's cold and it's calculated and it's materialistic. If there's an antithesis to God, it's AI.
No, you're right. I was just joking. But the green lobby, they're lobbying to have huge tracts of land made inaccessible. So while they're moving in lockstep, you got the bankers that want to move everybody into the city and enslave them. They're funding the green activists, and the green activists go in. They're like, "Oh, look at that! It's a spotted owl. Well, we can't have anybody within 10,000 acres of that one owl, so we're going to cut this place off. All you farmers move into the city."
What's ironic about the green movement is the religious belief that they had. And I'm saying had in past tense because I'm assuming now, where the data is in, that this was not true, that they're going to move away from it. But they believed this with a religious fervor. They were ready to sacrifice their unborn children to it. You wouldn't believe how many couples I know my age that didn't have children because of this narrative. So, I mean, that's sacrificing your children or your potential children to the nature god, right? We just don't use the language anymore because we're so materialistic and secular that, and we've been like the new atheist movement of our era, like Hitchens and Dawkins, they took the atheist conversation to the point of just absurdity. You're absurd and you're primitive and you're likely very dumb and naive if you even consider religion or God. And that was like that was never the case before, because God and religion is in my estimation the obvious answer. And you had to make a good argument to move people away from that. But that paradigm kind of shifted. And now people feel silly to mention and make an argument predicated on the sanctity of humanity relative to us being made in the image of God, being made in the image of the Creator.
Christopher Hitchens, he's like the archetype for a sexual predator. He looks like a child molester. Or look. We got a couple questions. We have one from a new audience member. Let's go to this one first. We'll go Clown World after. Tanya Lee says that Tanya Leah, JP, you could make an argument that Trump and Carney are co-conspirators. Kushner-Brookfield relationship implies they aren't in opposition, I think.
So I was entirely on the Trump train. I was a 51st stater because in my estimation, I was well aware of this globalist architecture that was trying to enslave us. And I thought Trump was outside of that, which is what I was supposed to think. That's clearly what I was supposed to think. But we all noticed in Canada what happened with our election. Pierre Poilievre up 20 points. Carney comes on the scene, kicks the two people that were above him in the leadership race out. You can't speak French, you're gone. And Carney can't really speak French neither. So then they get him at the top of the leadership race. And then Trump starts turning around and continuing to push the 51st state thing, which leaned people into Carney. Everyone knows that played a very vital role in the Canadian election. Even Trump himself said, you know what I mean? It was me that did that. Trump is a megalomaniac, so he loves to reference and project his insecurities by saying, look what I did, right? So that came out right away. And again, I was a huge Trump guy, but I'm one of those people that when new evidence arises, I have no problem. I'm humble enough to change my position and start to operate within the framework that I'm seeing. But I think they're definitely not in opposition. And I think all the evidence kind of, now, mind you, it's circumstantial evidence, but I think it indicates that precisely.
I'm sort of the opposite. I'm not sold on this yet. What is that expression? Correlation doesn't imply causation.
Doesn't equate causation, yeah.
Yeah, like this Kushner Brookfield thing. There was another one people say Trump, he got bailed out by one of the Rothschilds. I mean, yeah, maybe that's what started all of this, and the Rothschilds are holding that over him. But like, you need to have some at least circumstantial evidence going from A to B to C, whereas it could just be that Trump made a huge mistake. He just, he opened his mouth and derailed the course of Canadian history.
There's logic to that perspective. We disagree on that for sure, because there is more circumstantial evidence, and it's grandiose. It's the Epstein files, which Trump was heavily implicated in. Even Elon Musk admitted that when Trump pushed him out of the administration. It's like, oh yeah, Doge is done. Elon gets a black eye. Apparently it was from a headbutt from his son, though. It wasn't anything pernicious. And now Elon is pushed out, and he's angry enough with the administration that he releases on his platform that Trump is on the Epstein files. And then Elon is put in place. And now we don't hear much from Elon. We don't hear much at all substantive from Elon, except him like hero worshiping God Sod, which is pretty odd. And he put Nikita Beer in charge of the algorithm, and everyone's deboosted now indefinitely. So, I mean, I don't know, man. I think there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that indicates that they are kind of working together. But again, I'm definitely, this is speculation and conjecture. These people at the top of our ruling class, at the top of the food chain, they don't leave pure evidence. If you're not willing to kind of make some speculations and kind of use your discernment to determine what's occurring, then you'll never know. There will never be a hard piece of evidence that directly, incriminates these people. They're very good at ensuring that doesn't come out. But the Epstein documents would be the closest. That implies the supranational structure.
Let's see what Clown World has to say. After his recent MMA fight, Sean Strickland was being interviewed. He suddenly saw himself on screen and said, "Oh my God, look at my nose. I look like someone who works for AIPAC." Who's Sean Strickland?
So I'm a huge UFC fan. Don't think less of me. I know it's really barbaric, but I really like the personalities. I like the competitiveness of it. It's like physical chess. But I watched that. I was watching that, and that was hilarious. Number one, it definitely a little lowbrow of a compliment or comment to make. But Sean Strickland is the middleweight champion in the UFC presently, and he beat Hamzat Chimaev to win the title that night. And he took some beating in it, and he had his nose was swollen, and he made that comment, which was funny.
Yeah, this isn't racist at all to say. It's just observational. Like that Jewish Arab hook nose. You could open up a can of tuna with. If you go into the Middle East, everybody, anywhere you walk, they got these massive noses, and you're like, man, I don't want to mess with that guy. I mean, Lord knows how many times he's been punched in the face.
Yeah, it's the thing with racism is it's one of those words like liberal that have been distorted to where it doesn't mean anything anymore. So I don't use it. That's why you'll hear me. I'm not trying to sound smart when I say biologically deterministic, but that clarifies what racism meant to me. The way I used to use it is that I'm judging people based upon an immutable characteristic. I'm categorizing them in advance.
Here we have Clown World just trying to get us to go to jail, but when Bill C-22 passes, Lord knows.
Clever.
Lord knows, unintended. She mentioned something earlier. Maybe you should. So that made me chuckle too when you mentioned Alex Epstein. I'm like, any relation to Jeffrey? And Clown World says Alex Epstein actually supports the idea of man-made climate change. How are you going to defend that one, JP? Man, you stepped in it.
I'm fine with that. There potentially Alex Epstein is a common name. I'm assuming relatively common. I mean, so I would think maybe that's the case. From what I've seen of Alex Epstein, if he's on my list, he indicated that he doesn't believe in man-made climate change. Some of those people on the list too they don't entirely reject it, but they've proven the absurdity of moving our legislation and moving our society as if this is gospel. Like there's still a lot of them poked holes in different ways. Like I'll say it was refuted in a multitude of different ways by these various people.
They're confounding two separate issues. Both of them are real. One is climate change, which is real. I mean, the climate changes. Read any history book, it's always changed. And the other one is pollution. Go walk on the side of a highway for an hour and tell me if you can still breathe. But then they've merged these two and they say that the reason that the climate is changing is because of that pollution, ergo, everything else that flows from it.
Yeah, it's anthropogenic climate change is the term. And it's not just that, it's anthropogenic climate change relative to carbon emissions. So they're photosynthesis deniers is what they are. They're science deniers.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Photosynthesis deniers.
That's Crypto Rich. I borrowed that from Crypto Rich.
There's a smart guy. Everybody should go follow him. No, it's something about these guys. Like it is a religion, and they believe in these things so firmly that it almost leads to like a mass formation phenomenon where if you give a counter argument, they have to counter your counter argument somehow. That their religion cannot be proven wrong.
And again, it goes back to a topic from yesterday, like the ego. We have such pronounced egos, and we're so insecure with ourselves that many of us come on platforms like this and we endeavor to validate or substantiate our inflated impressions of ourselves. No one wants to be like, hey, I'm not the foremost authority in this area, so I'm going to be a little humble, but here's what I know, which is what I try to qualify things as. Like, I mean, but people don't have that. The sense of ego takes over, so they're being disingenuous and they're lying to themselves very frequently. The replication crisis showed this precisely.
When people do become humble, when you ask them to define what a woman is, like, well, I'm not a biologist. Why would I know?
Sure they do, right? And that gives the whole grift away, right? It's like you're being disingenuous. You're probably unaware of it.
We got one more question, comment from Squirrel Nuts. We can end it. UN extreme activists and affiliated activists lobbying our governments worldwide while the king pushes them with encouragement. Oh, that's an interesting theory. But King Carney, sort of the same thing, and they're pulling the strings.
King Charles too. I mean, King Charles did a speech from the throne recently that was just, we have to stop being so Islamophobic and we have to focus on the climate because that's our biggest problem. Like, these people are just spokespeople for powers above them. And this is or was, because again, now they have to suddenly rationalize or justify using tax dollars to build these massive data centers. So maybe this is something that changed, and we'll see them all do a 180. And it's like I say frequently, this clandestine group, that this externality that is influencing our political class, they prefer to be clandestine. But make no mistake, if their power is truly threatened, they'll come out of the shadows and deal with it. And they'll just go back in and call you a conspiracy theorist if you think otherwise, right? And that's been working. That's their modus operandi, as a matter of fact.
I always shit all over the Canadians because I kind of wish they'd woken up by now, but we are making progress. So there are people that are, they're podcasters and they're caught in this left-right dichotomy, and, Pierre Poilievre, you see how he ate that apple kind of phenomenon, but at least they're waking people up and they're saying, this doesn't make any sense with these data centers.
Pierre Poilievre ate an apple 2 years ago and asked a condescending reporter a clarifying question. And they're still celebrating him for this accomplishment. It's pretty wild.
Is one of your kids playing some World War II game in the background?
My daughter's alarm went off. She worked a back shift, so she had it set this late.
Seriously? And, it sounded like you were in Hitler's bunker. What kind of alarm is that?
Yeah, it's like a red alert sound from Star Trek is what it reminds me of. She woke up to shut it off or snooze it.
All right. Okay. Well, I guess that's all we got for today.
Yes, indeed. I would like to appeal to the audience. We got half of our viewership from yesterday, our live viewership. But this show is early, so it's we get most of our views after the live broadcast. So it's imperative for us, for you guys to share this, because it's the only reach we get. We're heavily suppressed in these algorithms. So with that said, thank you very much, and we'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Cheers.